So Battlefield 3 is the successor to the game Battlefield 2 that was released in 2006. So it's been a long time, and finally we have been able to get the game to where we want it to be. Here today we're showing more or less the entire game, at least snippets of the entire game. So there's single player, a couple of missions, and there's been a co-op mission, and we're showing a lot of multiplayer, which is the backbone of Battlefield. Yeah, so the single player experience is tailored to show everything you can do in Battlefield, or at least give a glimpse of the variety you have in a Battlefield game. So you will have everything from vehicle missions, you will have a lot of gadgets, you will have a lot of guns, of course, and also be able to show a lot of different environments. We see Battlefield single player as a stepping stone into the core that is the multiplayer of Battlefield. So you can see it as icing on a cake, even if it's quite a big icing. It is an important part of the experience, but if you look at how many hours you would spend on it, you can't even imagine to compare it with how many hours you will spend in multiplayer. So the biggest difference between Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 3 is, of course, well, time has passed. So, gaming has evolved, we have evolved, the technology has evolved. So there's a lot of, obvious changes that we have. We've always, been trying to create this authentic Battlefield with all our Battlefield games previously, and this time around we have the technology to make it even more authentic. So there's no difference in our goal when it comes to the core of the game. Then of course we're adding components like single player, we're adding components like co-op, and now battle log, which is also the social wrapper around the whole product. So there's a lot of bits and pieces that you could argue is the same when it comes to the core of the Battlefield experience, but you can see this as a bigger and more modern product when it comes to how we see Battlefield in the future. We have a new unlock system that is much deeper than we've ever had before. So you can actually unlock different scopes that actually fits to many different weapons. So you have a rail system on the weapons where you can attach different gadgets. And this means that every weapon in the game has its own progression. Every kit has its own progression, and then the soldier in itself has its own progression. So there are many different layers that are catering to different personalities, instead of just having one system, and if you don't like that, you're out. We try to cater to the Battlefield player, and the Battlefield player is actually quite a wide array of personalities. So vehicles has been getting an overhaul on adding more stuff to that experience. So not only can we have a sprint button for vehicles where you can have afterburners for the jets, you can do a burst for acceleration for the tanks, you have smoke, you have different accessories that can unlock for the vehicles. You can decide yourself what type of weapons you equip the jet with, and all of this is to cater for a more in-depth experience. We also have vehicle disabling, which is a completely new feature. Instead of the tank just going from health state where it's completely like normal and then explode, we actually go to a health state that is disabled mode, which makes the vehicle disabled. So you can still use the turret, you can still use the tank, but you can't move it in the same manner that you could before. And this adds a new layer of strategy to the vehicles, because you can either choose to bail out, or you can defend yourself and try to get out of the situation. The problem is, if you bail out, you have a vehicle that you can easily repair it and then steal from the enemy. So the strategy is then how do you use this situation to your advantage, rather than just bail out and run. I think there are some obvious pillars that Battlefield has that we haven't really seen in other first-person shooters. First of all, we have the vehicles. That's an extra layer that we haven't really seen in other games. And when I mean vehicles, it's the controllable vehicles. You have the jets, you have the tanks, you have the jeeps, you have the helicopters. All of them can be controlled by the player. You even have boats in the game. Another layer is, of course, the team play. There's a lot of team play aspects. How you squad up, how you get points for supportive actions. You know, you could probably end up #1 in the scoreboard, but without firing a single bullet, and that's nothing you see in many first-person shooters. So there's a lot of supportive actions and team play actions that actually gives you points. And then of course we have the destruction, which is the tactical part of the game. It's both the small stuff and the bigger stuff that you can actually dynamically alter the environment around you. And those three things you don't really see in other shooters. There's one really cool thing in Battlefield 3's single player that we haven't really talked that much about, and that is the cutscenes that we have. It's the whole, the thing that strings the story together, which is we're using a technology that you haven't really seen before in any other game. It's called Face Forward. It's a 4D scanning technique where you scan ahead 60 times per second. Which means that you have a very realistic rendition of facial expressions. We're using real actors to get the story to come through in a very good way. One thing that is very, very important is the longevity that we're putting into the game after we launched it. We know for sure that, looking historically at Battlefield games, that when you launch them, you don't know exactly what will happen because the consumer is so creative, so they will find all crazy things to do in the game, and you always need to take care of a product that big. So we have a full team now that is working on the game post-launch as well, so we don't only try to ship it and then forget about it. There's always, freak things that can happen in games like this, because, it's a sandbox. You have systems that you throw in there, and they're supposed to work in a specific way. But then all of a sudden, it turns into an exploit, or it turns into a really, really cool feature. So it's a debug or it's a feature that happens to it quite a lot, because for instance, you're able to shoot a jet pilot through the glass or the canopy of the jet with a sniper rifle. That was nothing we designed, but since the system works like that, we can shoot bullets through glass, and you have a guy behind glass in the canopy. When you see that the first time, you get quite excited, because it's really, really cool, and you need to sit down and discuss, should we remove it, is it an exploit, or should we just keep it? And of course, in this case, we kept it. So there are always things that can go wrong when you have complicated systems like this, but there's always cool things that can go very, very right as well. Battlefield 3 is going to be released on the 25th of October on PC, X360 and PS3.